Welcome to episode 7 of Casual Disasters. This is Madeline Sells recording today with Ben Tobin, or as Spokane knows you, Capturing Spokane. God, there's so much to say about Ben. He's a character. But he's been capturing Spokane for, I don't know, how many years, taking photos?
Like religiously of just like focusing on the city itself, 7 years and working, I'd say.
Would you say every day almost? Like,
this year it's twice. This year it's averaging like every single day, sometimes twice a day.
my God.
Ends up being like between 6 to 12 miles a day of walking.
Wait, how many?
6 to 12.
6 to 12 miles a day.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that I've walked. I haven't really thought about it too much, but last week I was thinking, man, I've probably gone over 1,000+ miles walking downtown.
Of the city.
Yeah.
So that was something I was going to say as part of your intro too, is you're very immersed like in Spokane, like getting to know this community at a depth, like just being on the streets with the Spokane people, with people that live on our streets of Spokane. But you've done a lot of amazing things even outside of photography too. I'm always interested. Actually, you told me the other day, how many views did you have on your TikTok for like biking or no, it was you making trails. You also make trails.
Yes, bike trails. I design and build bike trails. I guess I got into it like from riding BMX bikes. So when we were kids, we used to build BMX jumps, 10, 11 years old. And when I got to college, I found a bunch of guys in Seattle at Green Lake that built BMX jumps. And we started building jumps there. And if you go there today, there's a bunch of BMX jumps at Green Lake in Seattle.
Really? That you built?
Yeah, they've all been expanded, but I'd helped build like the infrastructure of that. And then when I moved here, I helped build some of the dirt jumps with some of the dirt jumpers in town because I photographed them. And it's actually how I moved here, was based off action sports. I worked for 3 bike magazines in LA, and then I came to Spokane right afterwards. And I just naturally went looking for athletes that were bike related. And when I was in LA, I looked for guys that like jumped off buildings and made dirt jumps, and just kind of part of like urban culture, I guess. You know, like people didn't have a car to like go mountain biking, so they took their mountain bike into the city. And I think doing that type of bike riding and covering that stuff got me pretty familiar with like being excited about the city.
Yeah, like I'm so curious what like got you into like the street piece of Spokane, like photography on our streets here.
It's kind of one of those things that's everything just happens by accident. Like you're curious about one thing, and then another door opens and you're like, oh, I didn't realize this was there. And what it was is I wanted to go, when I quit drinking about 7 years ago, I wanted to take photos of people in the skywalks. I thought like it was really cool. The silhouette in the evening of people walking through them was just like kind of iconic for Spokane. Like that was like one of my first like visuals. I'm like, that is like an iconic image. And so I went and got it. And when I was getting it, I got it multiple times. So I was like addicted to it, with the car lights and the people walking across the crosswalks and like people going through the skywalks. It was really dynamic. And there's all that excitement. But then there's these people on the sidewalks that are like, I'm like, these people aren't shopping. These people are living on the streets. And this is pre-pandemic. And so one of the first guys I came across, he probably been on the streets maybe a month, 2 months, pretty clean cut. And I took a photo of him and sent it to him. And we exchange information back and forth for a couple of weeks, and then he disappeared. But then as time went on, I started running into that guy more and more, like throughout the years. I probably stopped seeing him like 3 years ago, but he looked rough.
So you've known him that whole time?
Yeah. It's usually in the mornings because that's when I was going out, and he usually be cubby holed up somewhere with a partner.
Like a romantic partner?
Yeah, a romantic partner. And I'd be, hey, what's up? And sometimes if I had food, I'd give it to him, and he would just, with him, I knew his circumstances from day one, like when we first crossed paths. And then when I kept seeing him, you kind of just see him being disappointed in himself. But there's other people I've seen that's complete opposite, like that they're open and they're vulnerable, but they still have a lot of hope. Like, and I find that the more I've seen that in the last 7 years, it's changed the way I look at these people. And so my connection with them is a constant like reminder of like, we have people that live on the streets 24/7 that have a lot of damn courage. I mean, a lot of us, if we were put in these circumstances, I'm pretty sure would put a bullet in our head or do something else, jump off a bridge or whatever. Like, it's pretty gnarly circumstances. A lot of these people, the first 24 hours they're on the streets, are raped. You know, I mean, I can go down a list of things that like none of us would ever want to have happen to us, being on the streets, and so they have to roll in packs. And it's just not safe. If I talk to people that have come from other places and they've hung out in Spokane, they will tell you this is one of the more gnarly places to have to be on the streets. That's kind of
like it's more unsafe even than like,
yeah,
I'm just thinking like bigger cities than us.
Yeah, in other cities. And so
like New York streets or Detroit or.
I talked to these guys that were originally from Texas, and they were coming all the way up here till they were taking trains and buses and hitchhiking and stuff, and they were coming to like say goodbye to their sister that had passed away. And when they got here, they were just like, they just have never been treated so poorly, with all the cities they'd come from Texas to here.
Wow.
And so they were used to like going to like the police station or the city hall and asking for like some bus tickets, and usually they could just like get out of the town. We didn't have that available for them, and so they were trying to figure out how to get out of town.
And they were houseless, like living on the streets, and they had been in other cities, and were like, why doesn't Spokane offer this piece of like escaping that?
Yeah, and they said that nothing's safe. Like people like try taking your stuff, and I've heard that multiple times through.
Like there's no respect of boundaries, even if you're on the street here.
No, if you talk to enough people, they usually like I said, really roll in packs. Like one person will like go shopping, for instance.
Yeah.
And the rest of them will all hang out together and like guard each other's stuff. So if you're rolling by yourself and you see them like in the morning or night, they're just like, man, that person is they're either out of their mind or they're not liked. You know, there's a lot of things we don't think about. There's all these subcultures in the unhoused community, and you still have to remember there's people that are also outcasts, just like in our culture.
Yeah, so there's still, this goes back to something I talk about a lot, like that kind of hierarchy, like the pedagogy of the oppressed. Like within power, we'll find power by oppressing each other, even if we have nothing, to have that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me think about that. In any kind of culture, you'll start to see humans making that hierarchy. And people wouldn't assume like, wow, like even people that we see, we assume have nothing. Well, there is something, right? Like to even being on the streets, and there's power in that hierarchy.
Yeah, I was thinking about their culture, and to be on the streets, I don't know how else to put it. It's hustle culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hustle, like you're gonna do what it takes to like get the job done, you know, whether it's breaking into cars or stealing bikes or, you know, stealing cell phones, jackets,
Survival.
shoes. Yeah. And, you know, having something to trade with someone.
Yeah, it's huge.
And once you get to know these people, none of them like doing this. It's not like they're like, oh man, I can't wait to break into a car.
And smash. That was
Yeah.
like a classic thing for me when I lived down here. I lived downtown for like 10 years in an apartment. I can't even tell you how many times my window was smashed out. And sometimes nothing was even stolen, which was also really interesting to me. Like, nothing would be gone in the morning. I even had somebody sleep in my car, which I was actually fine with that. It's the just smashing the window out that I'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah, you could have your car unlocked and they sometimes...
Yes, they still do. I'd be like, fuck it. Like, I'm just leaving the goddamn car unlocked because I don't want to come out to a fucking smashed window in the morning. And then I'd be like, here we are again. Like, I would be like, just come into the car. Sleep in the damn car. I don't care. Go through the car. But, like, smashing the window out, now I have to pay another $200. I mean, it costs even more than that, but I did find a deal on Sprague. I have, like, a guy now. Like, if every time my window gets smashed out, I'm like, $200. Because it became, like, a monthly sometimes thing where I was like, oh, my God, this is now a new bill that I just should include as my utilities downtown living, is that my window will be smashed out. I don't know. It drove me nuts. Like, I'd get pissed, like, about it. And I've been attacked a couple times down here. Like, I don't know who these people were, but, like, in desperation, I think, of trying to get stuff. Like, my purse or belongings.
Yeah, I haven't had... well, I had some dudes. I didn't know I was... as midday, I was photographing into a shaded area, and, like, 4 or 5 guys came my direction, and... one of them, like the biggest guy, like just started getting really mad, and he was like, you could tell he was like trying to assess like what I was made of or something.
Feeling you out.
Yeah, and I just like, I talked exactly like how he talked back. Like I just mirrored the conversation, which unless I wouldn't recommend that with everyone, because I'm usually willing to, if I have to, like, protect myself. I have a really heavy camera with a big lens, or I have feet that I can run. And so like being surrounded by some dudes, you just have to always like assess like your situation.
Yeah, like escape, fight, flight.
Like, yeah, and not show any weakness.
But you're like gonna look at them in the eye and be like, I'm not backing down.
Yeah, yeah, but not be disrespectful in a sense. Like,
yeah,
there's a form of like, I don't know. It's just, I hate even saying it, like a form of street respect. Like, it just sounds so stupid.
yeah.
There's just a form of respect that you have with people on the streets, and if there's miscommunication, even with people that are hostile, they're usually, for me, I've noticed there's a way to like calm it all down.
Yeah.
But also that I recommend that for everyone. And there are people out there, like you said, like they'll just come unhinged.
Yeah, and if somebody's like, I was thinking maybe drug induced and not in their rational mind, like maybe they're more likely to be unhinged in that moment, or perceive a threat when there isn't one, or whatever comes up for them because they're not in that state of mind to think about. Even when you're living on the street and not like there's no drugs induced. I mean, that might cause something, of course, but I could see being just, like I'm not well, or mental health, like crises.
Yeah.
Like you're just off and having a horrible time. And like you said, like not having the basic needs met at the very base level. And now you're having mental health crises and you're living on the street. Like, I mean, what are we kind of expecting to go down there for that person?
I've just noticed that like we'll use First Avenue, for instance, downtown Spokane. All the people that live along there, work along there. I walk along there all the time. There's dog crap and human crap, and there'll be human crap
shit.
with a sock put on top of it like a little hat, and you're just like, that's awesome. And you know, at least they have like a little humor in their poop. But but there's some characters that live along there that the whole community on that street takes care of these people. And being down here for 7 years now, I've seen some of these people 3, 4, 5 years, and nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like it's like free range mental health ward here. And the community gets to take care of the people. Why we have leadership, like, I don't know, I don't even get into it. It's just, it's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And so
we're in the top 10 in the country right now for the highest rising, like, houseless population.
And so we use this wording, you know, instead of saying someone's homeless, we say unhoused. Well, I feel like we're spending more time like creating new terminology than actually helping these people.
Yeah, isn't that true?
I'm like,
we do this with everything though.
Yeah.
Fighting each other rather than helping.
Well, it's right now we're in culture wars, and we should be like, it should be culture care.
I like that, culture care.
I mean, we have, you know, leadership or people that work down in downtown Spokane or anything. Like, we're like walking into a garden. And I don't feel like we're treating it that way. Like, people get online and just like yell at the garden. It sucks. It doesn't grow good enough. It's got dirty grows. Like, it's just all growy bad. Like, you're just like, this is fucking stupid. Like, these people don't even come down here. They may drive through it,
yeah,
but they don't come down here. And they have all the criticism, advice, and you're like, what about the people that you don't know? Like, you don't know that who's running the streets really. You don't know who's really helping the people in the streets. And once you start seeing the basic help,
yeah,
that's where you kind of start seeing the beauty of our community. That's where I have to be like, this over here is beauty, and this over here is disconnect. And so the disconnect, getting mad at the disconnect, we can get mad at that all we want.
Yeah.
And it's going to be disconnect.
It's kind of just like admiring the problem
yeah.
instead of like actually doing anything about it. Because that's easier in some ways. Let's just talk shit. It's fun. Dopamine. Like, also drama and like excitement, but we're not doing anything.
I mean, I'm like boots on the ground. Like,
yeah, I want to talk about that actually. Like, when you started photography, like, did you know, like in Spokane specifically, because you've been featured in like National Geographic, you've had photos I don't even know, endless that I don't even know about, but that one stood out to me. Like, how did you decide, or how, I feel like you've really elevated like the unhoused community of Spokane, like, and they let you take photos of them. Actually, when you were just recently telling me you just had one incident of someone being pissed at you for taking a photo, was like questioning you. I was shocked that hasn't happened more regularly, but as you said, you have like, I don't know, I have multiple questions. Kind of, how did you get into like being accepted, or like knowing that you wanted to highlight people of Spokane in the streets?
The neighborhood I grew up in had some eccentric individuals that come down to this park called Risley Park. One of the guys rode a bicycle, and he had a record player on the back of his bicycle in the bike rack, and he would put a record on it. And when I was a kid, he'd be in the park with on his lap, and he'd be spinning it and thinking dinosaurs are gonna come. And I really like this guy. He's like this mystical character for me. And then when I'd ride on my bike home, we had a neighbor like halfway down the road that had this crazy stereo rack system. And this dude, when he was off work, he would dress up like a woman, and sometimes sunbathe on his roof. And he was one of the more nice people that lived on my streets. Like, he always said hi to me, and I was like, like wave to him.
Yeah.
But my point is as well as my family. I've always been around some very eccentric individuals, and these eccentric individuals, that they have gifts just like anyone else has gifts. And what we do is we create a bill of health for them that like their gifts that they have don't fit with ours. And so it's more like, so we start building this thing of like, we're accommodating them versus like they're part of us. So like we're also like separating them from us. And I saw it as a kid, whether it was like through organized religion, trying to like, some people like trying to put a barrier between two people. And when it was religion, I was like, well, this makes no sense. Like the religion thing is supposed to like be about building culture. And so I had to really like, as a kid, I had to start questioning like, well, what is culture? And I think culture is, real culture is taking your weakest links in your community and your strongest links in your community and pulling them to the center. And that's beauty, that's grace, that's mercy. That's the garden, but what happens is we pretend we're doing that, and we pull more from the community than the underbelly, if you want to call it that. And I think it sucks that we have to like even use the word underbelly.
Yeah,
it's gross.
That just feels really gross.
Yeah, and it sounds it's like table scraps, and people that live on the streets day in and day out, some of them like survive multiple overdoses. I don't care who you are, they're courageous, they're still alive.
They're still here, yeah.
But we also don't think it takes a lot of money to like care for these people on the streets.
Yeah.
You can't track them down. Sometimes they're down the river, sometimes they're underneath bridges. Who knows where they're at? But they do use our resources. They use the community, they use hospitals, they use public safety, they use library, and if we had a place for them, I think it's been proven. I think the Houston model talks about housing first, which is getting people into a house and stabilize them, and start giving them help they need. It's cheaper to do that than keep people in the streets. Mm-hmm. So for as mad as you want to get on a political level, left or right, the math proves that like it's cheaper to house people. And I start to question, I'm like, are people just mad that people are getting housing? Like, is that is that you're just mad? Like, because it'll get people off the streets, it'll take the stress off someone. If you take the stress off someone, then they probably won't be breaking into your car as much. Like, there's all these things that won't happen, and they'll still happen. They're always going to happen, you know. Car theft has always been around.
Oh yeah, that's not new.
Robbery has always been around, but we can ease the tension of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any answers to that one. That's not my job. I just come around and document it.
Yeah, but you're there. Like, you wake up every day almost, what is it, like 4 or 5 a.m.? What time do you hit the streets of Spokane on a daily, usually?
Well,
your norm?
Well, depending on like when the light's coming out. So in wintertime, I get a break. I get to go out later in the morning. But right now, I'm getting up around 4 o'clock so I can be out.
Because you want the darkness, right?
Yeah, I kind of like
the light peering.
I kind of watch it go from pitch black to light, and just wander through it and just see what I can capture. There's these moments that I get into. I'm just like, this is the spot, and then I shoot, and sometimes it lasts for like 2 minutes. Sometimes it lasts for a half hour.
It's funny. The other day I sent my friend your page because like one of the things that I talk about on this podcast is being from Spokane. There's a lot of like this kind of hate love, like, oh, Spokane doesn't suck, or just kind of this negative vibe about Spokane, or like we don't want to admit that we love this city. But I was telling her, I was like, you really got to follow Ben's page because somehow he makes the city look beautiful to me. Like there is a darkness about Spokane. When I was in Chicago recently, I was comparing like the dark energies. Like I was like, oh wow, it's like the brick and the dark, and it's like, you know, winter it just goes in even darker, and it stays dark here a lot of the year. But anyways, I love how you capture that in your photos. Like there's this darkness about Spokane, but there's also light. Like even within the community, part of this like is just thinking of all the beautiful stories you probably see and hear and get to be trusted with, like being now like sort of accepted, I would say. I don't know, this is the vibe I get from you, that like on the streets you're respected, not seen as like a threat or dangerous, even as a photographer.
Yeah, I could talk a whole bunch of like, I could be like really romantic about this piece. But I think once you identify with yourself, you're no better than anyone else, and you can even take it further that, you know, you're just a fucking wingnut, and so that means everyone else is a bunch of fucking wingnuts, and so
It's so true.
going and then you know we put people on pedestals. We give them this crown of something. And when we put them on a pedestal, we also do them a disservice, which is we expect too much from them. You know, like
we limerence them.
Yes, we limerence them. And I think we're all guilty of it because our shit does all stink.
It does.
And
that's for sure.
And I don't want to get like into names and stuff, but like I was hearing a couple of people have conversations with me a few weeks ago, and one was from the valley and one was from the city. And the beauty was, at the end of the day, both these people, like, love our community. They fucking love it. Like, they want the best for our community. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about something, about someone else, they're like, ugh. But even though these people are on opposing ends, they did the same, ugh. I'm like, this is funny. Like,
no matter where you stand politically.
Two fucking wingnuts that completely love the city.
Yeah.
And it's two degrees off. And both these people, I look at them, me being the photographer, I kind of look at myself as like, I guess you call myself like a border stalker, where I like go between like subcultures.
Ooh.
And
I don't know that I've heard that.
And so like I just go observe. And that's me moving here like 19 years ago. I've always felt like I've been a visitor. So for a while I had like a really big mouth and like told a whole bunch of people about a whole bunch of things in a special way. And so instead of like doing that, I thought I would start like just observing, you know. And I had some opinions of Spokane. I didn't like the city so much, and so I went and covered it. And now, if I don't like the city, at least I have like enough miles on the sidewalks to say
1,000 almost, we think.
To say what I think of it. And I still have noticed that like people really love my photography, but once I give sometimes my 2 cents, they're like, oh no, that's not it. And you're like, but it's the voice of that photo. Like, I'm sorry that you don't like that sound that came out of that, but that's what I see. And maybe if you do as many miles and you click as many photos as I have, and you sit at a table and edit, and you pass as many people, like there's a whole bunch of accumulation of things I've done that they haven't, and they still have 3 or 4 more cents than me. I'm like, God damn, I'm still visiting.
I've actually, when you were saying that, I'm like, does Spokane ever accept these people that aren't born and raised here? There's like a culture here around like, which high school did you go to? Where did you grow up in Spokane? Do you know this person? Do you know that person? Did you go here? Da, 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 da. And when visitors come here, like friends that are not from here, they're like, why are they asking me about what fucking high school I went to? And I'm like, huh, welcome to Spokane. Like that culture. I feel like it's changing though, but it still exists.
Oh no, guess what? This 19-year-old visitor.
Yeah.
We're gonna take this fucking place over. And know what else? We're gonna still let you guys hang out. That's the difference. Like you don't even know. Like you're gonna be invited to the party still, but we're fucking taking this place over.
Well, it's funny because I was
I'm
at
just joking.
I agree. Because actually, the other night I was the only person, or one of the only people in this room full. Like I'm talking like 50 plus people, and they had us raise our hand if we were from here, and I was like one of three, and I was like, what? I was like, wow, like this is really cool to see that people who have moved here, I call them transplanted to Spokane, are actually becoming more of the norm than not,
Mm-hmm.
which growing up being born and raised here, my mom isn't from here, but like just that piece, like our community is shifting, and it gives me a lot of hope because I'm like, we need other perspectives and lenses and culture to make people always say, what is Spokane culture? Well, it has a culture. Every group, like city has a culture. What I think is that it's been kind of, I don't know what you feel about this or think about it. I feel like Spokane is a little lost in what our identity is as a city.
Yeah, I don't. From me just walking around and talking to enough people, downtown Spokane's owned by, just a handful of developers that are getting towards the end of their lives, and these people still want to be heard, and the unfortunate part is, I think we all get to a certain age where we need to start looking at younger generations and giving them the wand to add culture, add what they learned in college or what they learned in school or the arts or whatever it is, but they need to be part of the community. Like the community shouldn't be going, you know what kids like? Frisbee golf courses. So let's put a fucking 100 of them in town. And the kids are like, but we don't do that. Oh no, you're gonna do it. And they're like, no, we want to fucking make skate parks and shit. They're like, oh no, we're gonna get rid of that. Like it. I feel like sometimes Spokane feels like a giant church camp.
I want you to unpack that because that sounds hilarious.
Like fucking youth group around here. Like I grew up in the church, in Portland, Oregon, and you got Wednesday night church and Sunday morning stuff, and you got the brunch, and it's just this whole thing, and I think it's great. Like I think it's Spokane is this is a conservative, even on the progressive end, this is a conservative community.
Oh yeah.
And people have their ways of doing things, and people are married and have their families, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Totally.
At all. Like a lot of people, that's the American dream. There's a lot of people that move here from other countries into Spokane, Washington, because they've heard Spokane, Washington is the American dream, and that's important. That puts us on the map for something. But if that's the American dream, we have to be more open. But we have to be willing to start taking our shoes off and putting our feet in other people's shoes, because that's what I've noticed in this town is people say they're willing to, but I don't think they are. One of the reasons why I photograph early in the morning is because my joke is Spokane's hungover. And it's just, if you go out at night, between 5 and 8 o'clock, downtown Spokane's jamming. It's thriving. But you come downtown Spokane between 5 and 8 in the morning, I mean, you're like, where is everyone? You go to a coffee shop, the coffee shop's open at 7. You walk into a coffee shop, there's 1 or 2 people in there. And if you go to other cities,
it's still happening. What about the fact that you can't get food after 8, kind of in Spokane? You know what I mean? Our city, you're right. They're at the bar. Like people are drinking or they have families. Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, I don't feel like we say we're like a foodie town. I feel like we're a town that likes drinking and eating expensive food.
So like alcohol first.
Yeah, I feel like people say, "Oh, we've got the arts community." I feel like people like drinking and being part of the arts.
So everything's with
Alcohol.
alcohol and then this activity to follow.
I don't give a crap if you drink.
So it's almost like elevating alcohol over whatever the experience is.
But if you want to drink, the irony behind this is like some of these people that can show up to the arts drunk, they also don't like people that smoke weed. You know, and it's like our culture. If you're willing to like take a few shots of whiskey, you should be able to deal with someone smoking weed or whatever their drug of choice is. Because a few shots of whiskey is gonna turn you into a new character.
Yeah.
You know, you might say things at an art gallery that you normally wouldn't say. And so I think we're kind of disconnected also culturally with like how we brand our alcohol. Like we can like all of a sudden become obsessed with IPAs. You know, we have a gazillion IPAs in town, and people like go chase them around, but at the end of the day, it's alcohol. You know,
that kind of bothers me too. There's like this culture around wine and alcohol or beer, sorry, like being not an alcoholic. And I'm like, what? You know, like they think drinking an IPA or going and having wine, it's like this hidden way. Like I think there's a whole culture around that of just being like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just drinking IPAs.
But they do it every day.
I know, but isn't it funny? Because I'm like, no, that's the same thing as if like going to the dive bar and drinking whiskey. You just have privilege, and now it's like this fake non-alcoholic person because they have privilege and access.
And it's expensive. Like
IPAs, yeah.
Like
holy shit.
People are paying what, $6-7 for a beer, then they have to still tip out. Like, that's just nuts.
It's insane.
I'd rather just go buy a joint
for $6
and call it good. Like, way better.
Yeah, I think it's hard. There's a lot of stigma still around weed and drug use in general over alcohol. Like, because our culture has accepted alcohol as like acceptable, even though we know the damage. Like, one, that can actually kill you from withdrawing from it. Like, I learned this. My brother or like a family member went to rehab that they said that's like the number one way.
How many people died on alcohol poisoning in Spokane, Washington during the pandemic, and how many people died from
I don't even know. Is there like data about that?
There's a handful of people that died from alcohol poisoning in Spokane. You know, people that had drinking problems in Spokane before the pandemic, a lot of them became bigger.
I'd be super curious to look into that data, honestly.
That's a really unfortunate thing. And so I really don't want to like get to, I want this podcast to be like about drinking culture in town because I have a lot of friends that drink.
Yeah.
And like I just said, we're a bunch of fucking wingnuts.
It is true. I drink.
So like you drink, I smoked fucking like 4 or 5 joints before coming on the show.
No.
Oh yeah, I watched a podcast yesterday. They got really baked before it. And I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I just got super stoned.
Anxiety-inducing.
Oh, I feel fine right now. But that's the thing. It's like, we're totally fine with like going onto a show like this and be like joking.
Have alcohol.
Yeah, joking about like the beers we have, but no one wants.
But if someone's like, "Oh, I smoked a joint," they're like, "Ugh."
Yeah, like even me saying I just got really baked before coming on the show, it makes me like stalled because I'm like, "Oh, what are they gonna think of me?" I don't fucking care. Like, god damn, I wake up at 5 and 4 in the morning, take 4 or 5 bong hits, and like fucking go walk around downtown Spokane.
Do you think, isn't that funny? It's like, really, a photographer and artist isn't smoking weed? I mean, I know there are people who are not, but why would that be so mind-blowing for people? Even the freaking whoever.
It is what it is. Like,
I just don't like the stigma around weed. Like, why people are so
Yeah.
quick to judge people smoking weed.
And I also think we share too much. Like me even just saying like I just smoked a lot of weed. Like who gives a fuck? Like like really no one cares. Like just like when I worked at the magazine.
Is that like a guilt thing where we're like, I need to tell you?
Yeah, confession
what I'm
time.
doing.
Yeah.
I need everyone to know.
When I was at the magazine in LA, this dude Scott came in my office and I was having a bad day. Go figure. And and my nickname down there was Caveman, but everyone calls me Cave. And so he's like, "Yo, Cave, I don't give a fuck what it's gonna take for you to get this story done today. If you have to go fucking buy heroin,
Oh my god.
fucking shoot that shit and get this goddamn story done. I don't give a fuck."
This is in LA.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And like 4 hours later, the garbage bin's full of alcohol, empty bottles, and I've smoked a whole bunch of weed, and I'm done with the story. And he's like, see, it worked.
I was just gonna ask. That made me think about. Do you think your photography's changed since not drinking?
Yeah.
What do you notice?
I take it more seriously. Like that was the thing about drinking was once I get like a couple of drinks in me, I was just kind of like a smiley face and 2 middle fingers. I was like, show me your best and I'll show you my worst. Yeah. Let's fucking party about that. And that's a really bad character of mine, which is...
Do you have an alter ego when you were drinking?
Yeah, it just comes out and it likes to party and wreck shit. And so I understand some of the characters, that I've come across and, in my life that are rough and tumble, but a lot of these rough people have like some of the toughest people I know are some of the softest people I know.
I know. I agree with that.
And they're not tough and hard for no reason. Some shit's gone down. And so like when you can tell someone has had a hard life and they're always vulnerable, why would you pick on them? Like why would you belittle them? And so back in the day, if I drink, I just like want to get in a physical confrontation and be like, you're not messing with that person. Like, who are you? But now that I was talking about like we have culture wars and now it's culture care. Well, inside the garden, you pick up a shovel, a trowel, or whatever, and you don't use violence, and with that you make art. My baseline's more warrior than anything. Like I do want to war on people. Like people don't want to talk about that, but like sometimes people piss me off, and like I get my emotions built up from like my past, and so instead of like letting that shit completely get to me and unravel me, I go make art.
I like that idea of like you're using your hands for art instead of violence, kind of like. Isn't that kind of what you're talking about, like in some ways, or what do you mean? Well,
it's like in the past, some of us have a lot of extra energy, and if we don't get it out, we're not very fun to be around.
Oh, that is the story of ADHD to me.
And
that
so like
pent up energy has to be released.
So like riding bicycles for me in the past has been a really good thing, and shooting photos outside, moving around. But I think the whole process of getting into something that you really appreciate and that makes you want to wake up tomorrow and want to do it again. Because one of my friends told me a few years ago, you're either busy living or busy preparing to die.
Yeah.
And so
intense.
when you're busy preparing to die, you're digging your trough of hate, you're digging your trough of all these things that like that just pull away from really who you are as an individual, and who you are as an individual is striving for tomorrow. And so I think what is it kind of says biblically, they talk about, like at the end of the day, you still want to like appreciate the lilies, like the beauty of it. And so no matter whatever shit you go through, like right now we have the sun going down and there's trees in the background and
Yeah,
cars
you have
going
an
by.
epic view, actually.
Yeah, it's wicked, and I get to talk about the beauty of Spokane. And so tomorrow, I want to wake up and see the sun coming up to the east, it's falling to the west right now, and all the people going across the Maple Street Bridge, as I see crossing, like they're all going home. They all have families. Like everyone has their shit to do, and I hope that like what I capture accommodates, it doesn't accommodate the cool people. It accommodates like the people going to work. It accommodates the people like living on the streets. People that work for power companies and going to the city and like put their lives on the line doing power. Or public safety officers that have to deal with some of these people day in and day out. Like, even though we don't like how public safety is structured, we still have to like appreciate the people that go on the streets, whether they're cleaning them, helping people with like ODs, contain a situation of someone being like losing their mind. Like we have to still have faith in the system that our public safety is going to come to the rescue.
Yeah.
Because those people going across that bridge over there, some of them are public safety people. They're going home to a family.
Yep.
They've got a front yard. Pretty soon spring will be here totally, and they'll be mowing it. They have neighbors. Like, we can't like just separate them like we do it with the unhoused. If we want to call people to go from homeless to unhoused, then we should call it police to public safety. We should have the same care, and we're not doing it. Like, we pick and choose what we want, and I'm right here going to say, I do not stand for police violence in any way, shape, or form. Fuck that. And I'm not going to stand up and be like, I'm a police advocate. No, it's just the same as the unhoused. Every single person has choices, and every single person at the end of the day has to live with them. And so public safety officer does something wicked, they are held accountable in our court system.
You hope, though. That doesn't always happen.
No, they are protected. I mean, luckily we have media. We have people like Range Media that would hold them accountable. We have the Inlander, we have the Spokesman. But the problem is some of our news outlets are more concerned about advertisements than they are actual news. And so when we get open source news outlets like Range, I'm plugging them right now.
Yeah, I like Range.
But when we get someone like them, we do get transparency. So it doesn't matter who is in office. Like they're always going to be like, it doesn't matter if it's left or right. We're still going to find out like what the mayor is doing, what the police are doing.
You're actually the reason I know about Range.
I did not
because
know
your article about you.
Which one?
The one of you walking to the Trent shelter. What is that even called? I can't even think of it.
Oh, track.
Yeah, that you did. Actually, I want you to talk about that article, like what you did, because that kind of highlights and magnifies like the whole thing of your photography work to me, like before I knew you.
Oh, I was on Twitter one day going, someone should go walk to the track shelter like on the hottest day of the year and see what it's like.
For
and then I was like,
homeless and unhoused.
I was like, that's just dumb. Why did I tell someone to do that? I'll just go do it myself. And then I ran up by some people at Range, and next thing I know, I have a Range reporter following me. This girl, Erin, I don't think she would know what she's up for, but it was hot as fuck. and her normal recorder wasn't working right, and she had to use her phone to like record me. I just talked the whole time, just like full on ADHD, just talking and shooting photos.
Yeah, as I say, were you were the photographer for it though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she walked with me, and I could not believe we had leadership that allowed a shelter to be 4 miles away from town, but that 4 miles is hell. Like, there's barely sidewalks in places. There's nowhere, like no stores in a lot of the places. And once you got there, I mean, dude, It's like that. This makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Like somebody from downtown would have to walk there to get to this.
Yeah, and they also have, there's transportation. There was like buses to get you there. But it's like, dude, the problem is downtown Spokane.
Yeah.
So whether it's build a bunch of like sub docking stations for these people to go to, because for one, putting everyone in one, that building looks like a animal rescue facility. Like if there's storms, this is where you take your horses and cows and like.
Wait, is it the old Costco?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
And
I think so.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm a visitor.
That was a yeah. I don't know.
Anyways,
I could be wrong.
When you have subcultures of people of the unhoused, not all of them. We even learned about them going to the Coliseum when we all threw them in there. Mm-hmm. They all didn't want to be in there together. Like some people need to be in smaller groups. Some people can be fine in bigger groups. But we need to ask them what they need
instead of being like, I know.
Well, and we also have to get people.
We didn't speak to you about your needs.
Well, like for instance, didn't we just have an incident where, like Jules Helping Hands, they were taking care of like 700-800 people peak a couple summers ago. They were taking care of something, also being sued by the city. They had the sheriff department after them, and then we had Washington State Commerce helping like keep them there. But the problem is the amount of work that Jules Helping Hands did during that time. That they should have been the first people addressed when the new administration came in, mm-hmm. and it didn't happen. And that to me is kind of, I really hope, because I've been told by Paul Dillon that the track shelter will be on its way out eventually, like in the next year. Like that contract's going to phase out. There's stuff like for street medics that I heard there's going to be more help with that. But I really feel like fentanyl, since we were like just coming out of a pandemic and we had infrastructure for the pandemic, for like testing, the fentanyl is so bad, we should literally take some of that infrastructure from the pandemic and like have testing sites for the drugs and start like figuring out like where it's coming from and like if it's bad batches and try to help, like start preventing ODs. People are going to do drugs no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so
that's a fact.
At least like being able to monitor them like and figure out where they're coming from, that's meeting them halfway, that's meeting the addiction, the issue halfway, and then I think it shows that we're willing to listen.
I would love that. We don't really even do it currently with our students.
No.
It's a huge need.
Yeah, meeting people halfway is a big deal. You just can't tell someone like, you know what?
Don't do drugs.
Yeah, you got a bad, big, nasty habit, and you got to stop.
What? It's like my favorite thing that's alleviating like all this pain and suffering. Fuck you. I mean, honestly, you're gonna take the thing that is making me. I mean, you could call it coping, disassociating, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's gonna be a really hard thing to take away from someone, and just say that by saying words to them.
I don't think what people understood about Camp Hope was you could walk through there, after you walk through your cute little neighborhood and the grass is perfectly cut and everything, and you walk into Camp Hope and there's pallets and all types of stuff. It's just scattered everywhere. But as you'd walk through scattered stuff, that you have to still remember, like, people are living here. And like symbolically, I was like, this place looks broken, but the fact that these people are waking up every single day, like, I think that's kind of like a good word for Camp Hope. Like, there was hope being built in there, but the fact that like people from the outside were like, that's dirty, that's wrong, that's this, that's like, we don't have to live in there. We don't have to guard it. We're not the ones working in the warming shelter. Like, we're not the ones coming in, like, donating food. There's so many things that, like, we're not doing as a whole, and still saying, well, this is affecting us. Mm-hmm. Well, no shit. Like, it's affecting all of us. But what people don't realize is Camp Hope, for instance, for my neighborhood, I live, like, towards the sun, on top of Sunset Hill. There was probably between 80 to 120 people from Camp Hope that lived in my neighborhood before that happened. Alleviated that problem. And of course, we got the catalysts set now. Same neighborhood that had alleviated that many people got mad at catalysts. And you're like, dude, like, what do you want? You want them off your streets. You want them out of your neighborhood. We give them a place. Now they're mad that we're giving them shelter. Mm-hmm. And so...
I wonder what their answer is, honestly. I don't know. Have you heard the opposing to, like, housing people?
I think people just like getting mad.
Again,
you know,
admiring the problem.
We come out of the pandemic and people are just mad.
They're really mad.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I do not think, personally, that we're in
I'm mad.
Unhealed space. I mean, we are in an unhealed space, I feel like, from COVID still. Yeah. I think it's still lingering.
No, it is. Like, there's like all these breakups happening right now, like pandemic breakups, and
they're happening during and after. Like once we like let the floodgates open again of humanity to be around each other, that's when I saw like people being locked away with each other. Like it changed everything for humans.
And me seeing some of these people that have lived on the streets the entire pandemic, I mean, man, they aged. I mean, especially like you have to remember, like, these people live all 4 seasons on the streets, and the only way they get off the streets is by doing something reckless.
You mean getting incarcerated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple people I know that if they disappear, I'm like, they're in jail.
You don't necessarily think they're dead? Is that not the first thing you go to?
There's one dude, Nick, on First Ave that I've thought he's died a couple times, and then he's back. I'm like, damn, like, you're a cockroach, bro. Like, I don't mean to call him that, but it's like, jeez, dude.
But like just that kind of like a cat, like 9 lives, you just keep appearing here.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to like not joke about it, but I would love to, like, you know, I try to think of downtown Spokane as a garden, so I try to get soft with my words that, you know,
it makes it sound pretty.
We have this unfinished love story we're all living. And if we have an unfinished love story and we're like thinking about the garden, well, why the hell are we letting Nick not fulfill his? Like, sometimes the unfinished love story for him is like a body of people coming along and going, dude, like, we care for you and we want to get you some help. Like, there's enough people in the community that know Nick's name, and you post his photo on...
And they would know.
And everyone's like, that's Nick. We love him. Mm-hmm. Well, if we love him that much... well, let's get him off the fucking streets.
Yeah.
Like, he's not an animal. He's a real human being with a horrible addiction, horrible mental health issue. There should be a place that, like, we can, especially as someone that lives on First Avenue and they've seen him a gazillion times and bought him gloves a gazillion times, like, they should be able to, like, help this guy.
Because he's part of our community, our culture, our place of Spokane, which actually is a perfect way of ending this. I ask every guest when they're on here, what is like their hope or wish for Spokane, or something they, I don't know, envision for our city or want as we end the podcast.
I think I want Spokane to quit, like, micromanaging from the high up and thinking that our younger generations don't have ideas, you know, don't virtually, like, don't have a place at the table. Like, I've noticed that this town, and there's a lot of towns like this, but kind of like the good old boy club, that needs to be dismantled. Like, and so even if you, like, came from the good old boy club and you're like, I don't want to be part of this, unfortunately, you'll probably do a good old boy club. It'll just be a wider spectrum of it, but, like, we need to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. and which I think that will get rid of itself by like seeing new people here.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sticking around. Like, it's taken 19 years of like learning to like really appreciate a town like Spokane, and it's kind of fun to like finally be here where we have like the same like-minded people coming.
I know, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I'm going to plug your stuff. So, Capturing Spokane is your Instagram, and Ben Tobin, you can see all of his photography of Spokane on there. It's amazing. And it's I think not just me, but I notice people online just long and look forward to your photography every day, like the daily stuff that you're doing. And I'm really excited to see you venturing out of just downtown, like actually going into Hilliard and Monroe, and those areas are really important to the Spokane community, these neighborhoods. So I just want to thank you for being on. It's so awesome to have you on the podcast, because back when I started this, and I think maybe even part of my inspiration was like you capturing photography. I really want to capture people's voices in Spokane and elevate them. So it's kind of like, I never thought about that as like a similar, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and usually like if you like go to my Instagram and in my social media feeds, I don't like show my face.
I know you don't.
And so like hearing my voice, as a photographer, we're supposed to like be in the background and just like take, like I said, like be an observer and just take it in. That's why I want to talk so much about politics. Like, all our people in office right now are just doing their best with what they had to pick up from the last group. It's just one thing after another. So I don't believe in the narrative of like people wake up in the morning and want to be villainous.
Yeah.
I don't think our Spokane community is villainous. I think Spokane community is came out of the pandemic and we're all scared.
Yeah.
And wingnuts.
And wingnuts.
and that's okay.
I love that. We are wingnuts. Well, thanks, Ben. And yeah, you can find this podcast, Casual Disasters, on any of the platforms. And tune in for the next episode.